I am fully aware I have a micro YouTube channel. I have another micro YouTube channel over at the Beige House, which is where I talk about my plants and all of the obsessions that I have about trying to keep plants alive. And on that channel, I had one video take off for me, and it was a video about duckweed, which is an aquatic floating plant that I cannot get rid of to save my life, and the regret that I have ever introducing it into the aquariums. Now, I made that video sort of haphazardly. I was just like, that's a good idea. It's something that I hate. Maybe other people hate it too. What I was unprepared for was the amount of traction it got, and comments and likes and shares and things. It became one of my most successful videos. And you think that I would be like super happy about that. That's awesome. Can you believe it? Oh my God, my little channel's taking off. But I was terrified. I was totally uncomfortable with it and worried that I wasn't ready for that kind of exposure, which is silly because then why am I making all of these pieces of content if I don't want people to see them? And my default urge was to unlist the video and make it all go away, which is so counterintuitive, right? Like, why am I making content if I don't want people to see it? People were liking that content. I didn't have any super negative comments or anything like that. There was nothing that was standing in my way from enjoying the success of that, and I was terrified. But it got me thinking, why do I default into negative feelings on success? Why can't I relish that I'm connecting with people when that's my goal? And I noticed that I am not alone with this. A lot of ADHD entrepreneurs do this. As I'm sure you figured out by now, I'm not a psychologist or a mental health professional. I'm just a person who's lived with ADHD for decades. And what I think I've pinpointed is our reason for being so nervous and so reticent to accept success, even though we think we want it, is, I think, because of RSD. And that is rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD, as when you experience severe emotional pain because of a failure or feeling rejected. This condition is linked to ADHD, and experts suspect it happens due to differences in brain structure.
To be fair.
Oh, to be fair.
To be fair. To be fair.
To be fair.
To be fair.
To be fair.
Rejection sensitivity dysphoria is not officially considered a diagnosis. It's not in the DSM or anything like that. So there is some controversy around if it actually exists or not, but there's controversy around if ADHD actually exists or not. So to that. And the reason why people with ADHD tend to have RSD is because scientists think that it has to do with a tendency for people with ADHD to have emotional dysregulation, which essentially just means we have an inability to successfully regulate our emotions. So if you have felt very irritable or anxious or nervous on something that, looking back, it was kind of minor. That's what they think emotional dysregulation is, which tends to then fall into rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And one of the good parts of having ADHD means you also typically have a lot of low self-esteem, because, speaking for myself, being the weird kid in school and not knowing why can lead to a lot of self-reflection, which you're not fully equipped to do if you don't have a good support system or therapy or medication or diagnosis. And so it becomes this sort of wall that your natural tendencies come up against, and it becomes either, are you going to accept that you are becoming successful, or are you going to reject that and do something that blows up your momentum, like closing your business, starting a new one, unlisting a video, whatever. And choosing the wrong path for that can seriously harm your business. My original business, which I've talked about before, was one that I called an industry darling because it won these industry awards. It was in over 100 publications. It was doing well, but I never got it to the point that I was making a ton of money. I was supporting myself, but I'm not making the Fortune 500 off of that. And there are many reasons that never came to pass. Of course, the hindsight's always 2020. We don't feel it in the moment, but looking back, one of the reasons that I was not able to grow it the way other people would have is because I thought I wanted success, however you define that. But looking back, there were so many roadblocks I had set up for myself that just made success impossible. And that was a really good comfort zone for me. That was my bubble of feeling like I was trying, but actually setting myself up for failure a lot of times. And if this is ringing true for you, I want you to not worry, because there's actually ways that you can combat RSD. The first way that I worked towards breaking up this pattern of self-sabotage was looking at my data. When I saw that this video was taking off, I had a decision to make, because my channel wasn't specifically about aquatic plants. It was about wherever I could put a house plant, terrestrial or aquatic or otherwise. But I had a lot of feedback from people saying, like, I want to hear more about your aquariums. And I had a crossroads. Was I going to become an aquatic plant channel, or was I going to stay the course that I was already at and do both? So I asked the community, and it actually went half and half. But then I started looking at my research and my data points, and I looked at the work I had done before to develop my avatar, my ideal demographic for that channel. So the same for you. If you are feeling like you are letting self-sabotage ruin your business, start looking at your data and start looking at the research you can pull to reason yourself out of that. One of the best ways to combat negative self-talk or low self-confidence is to look at something that is objective. And usually that is scientific data or marketing research. You can use those as unbiased evidence that what you're feeling isn't in tune with reality. And that especially works well when you start getting away from the computer. And I hate the phrase touching grass, because it's always such a put down, but that's kind of what I'm talking about too. You need to get some outside perspective. And it's very easy, especially if you're a solopreneur or a freelancer, to be alone and feel isolated. And the only voice you're hearing is the one in your head that has a tendency to talk negatively about you. So if you are able to do this second point and get outside perspective and get away from the computer for a while, you're going to start seeing evidence that shows you the rejection you're afraid of probably isn't going to happen. And you are worthy of being successful in this business that you have created, which also goes to the next way you can combat this, which is getting outside help, specifically a business coach, a therapist, a friend, a partner. You need a voice outside of your head, and you need someone to bounce ideas off of. You might feel like they don't have a true idea the way you do about your business, but that usually works in your favor too, because you know so much, hopefully, about your business and the way it operates and the goals that you have, that if you are able to bring in someone who has even a little bit of an idea, but not a full idea, like they know you're a freelance writer, so consequently you write on the computer a lot, and that's like the end of the knowledge they have of your business, that's really good, because it shows you a perspective of someone that doesn't have that sort of institutional knowledge, and it gives you a way to bounce ideas off of someone who can give you a different angle to look at things. And what they'll most likely tell you is the next point, which is your life has to be more than your business. For people like us who are able to hyperfixate really easily, and especially if you feel like there's more you could be doing to achieve perfection in your business, you're going to really let yourself just close in and self-isolate even more, to the point that it all becomes your business. It's all encompassing, and that is so detrimental for your health. All of these outside perspectives and getting away from the computer and adding more color into your life than just your work will make you get out of your head and force you to start looking at things a different way, because you're not fixated on it 500%. So many of us have cabinets that are essentially graveyards of hobbies. And I get that, the start and stop happens a lot, but even if you are someone who will start a hobby and then kind of let it die off, that's not always a bad thing. You're still taking time away from fixating on the problem that you think you're having or the self-sabotage that you're creating. And that leads to the last way of rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and that is changing the way you talk about yourself to yourself. Mindfulness. And mindfulness is much easier said than done. I don't know if you're the same way, but before I started therapy, I had a very black and white feeling about myself. I was either good or I was bad. Most of the time I was bad. And when I started learning more about the way I was talking to myself and recognizing that I was creating this cycle of negativity in my own head, I had to learn how to stop that and how to bring in feelings of satisfaction with the work that I was doing and the life that I was leading. That took a lot of therapy and still takes a lot of therapy for me to develop a gray area. And it probably feels that same way for you too, where it's either you are this or you are this. And this seems to never happen because you're always over here at the negative part. I realized actually is like the negative is blue, the positive is red and pink. And if you're not sure how to actually do that, here's a question that can help get you started. Why do you default to negativity? I'm not going to answer that question for you because that's something that you have to answer. I will tell you that people with ADHD tend to focus on the negative and have a tendency to look back at past failures and fixate on those because of our hyperfixation. But that's for all of us. That's not for you. Why is it you default to negative? And is it true? My guess is most likely not, at least not 100%, especially if you do all these steps before this. You can do it. I know you can. And the more you start to realize that RSD is affecting your business and giving you this itch to abruptly abandon whatever success is happening for something you're more used to that's a comfort zone to you, which is struggle, you're gonna start breaking that association and letting yourself accept success even a little bit. Even if you can have one moment, 1 second of feeling like, I did good, then you are breaking down those walls and you are doing yourself such a huge service. You can do it. I know you can, but you cannot let yourself fall prey to tropes that we hear all the time. If you watch this video, you're going to see the top pieces of bad advice given to people with ADHD and my solutions for fixing those. I will see you in that video.